Hello patrons, welcome back to my office. Cheers. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit more about what I've been doing and what's coming up. And that's rather confusing. I've given quite a few updates in the write-up for Pilgrims this month. But for you Templars, where are things going? Well, the whole idea of taking my books away from Simon & Schuster was problematic because basically it meant that I lost all book sales for half of the books I've written in my career from last July through to the present day. But there's an excellent little firm called Canelo Press, and they have taken on Pilgrim's War, which is going to be coming out hopefully in February, and also the first 8 of all the Templar series. Now, they didn't want to take on the whole of the Templar series in one go, because what they want to do is try to re-establish the brand. So they've got the first 8, and they've got an option to take on all the rest of them. That's good. The Vintner trilogy has been taken on by Sharp Books. I've got experience of them because they had Act of Vengeance when that first came out, and they seem to be doing a good job of selling copies of that. So I'm hoping that they'll do well with the Vintner trilogy as well. What they're doing now is they're bundling up all 3 books together to sell at a ludicrously cheap price. So keep your eyes open if you haven't read them. I'll certainly be tweeting and so on about them. I did say in my last talk to Templars that I would shortly be embarking on a new police procedural based around Plymouth. Now I still want to do that, but the difficulty is I've got an awful lot of things I want to do. I have a book based on, it's a sort of private eye type investigator, where I've taken the example of an artist who's a portrait painter. Because I thought that would be interesting, because an artist would see so much more in different faces when he was looking at them. I thought that was quite a fascinating concept. Now I have a complete draft novel of that, but it hasn't succeeded in finding a home with a publishing house, so I'm considering putting that out. I might put it up on Patreon first for you guys, and then possibly put it out as an ebook myself on Amazon or something. I've also got a number of other books that I've written that never saw the light of day. One of them, for example, is The Sniper, which I thought was an extraordinarily competent book for its time. But although it was snapped up originally by Bantam Press in 1994, it was then rejected a couple of days later. And the reason why was it was all about the ruddy IRA, and they'd just agreed their first ceasefire, so the book was out of date. However, the book itself, even if it's out of date, and it is hopelessly out of date now because it has things like private ownership of handguns, which was made illegal in 1997. But as a book, I think it's a strong one. I think it works very well, so I might well put that up on the internet as well. I don't think any publisher would take it on. This is the problem nowadays, you see. Publishers used to have a stable of authors. They would have the low end, which was new authors that they were trying to develop. So young guys, young girls who they saw potential with, but knew it was going to take 2 or 3 books for the author to learn their craft. I was one such person once, so was Ian Rankin. But then there was the mid-listers. Now the mid-listers were the guys who actually made all the money for the publishers. Mid-listers, which is what I became, were the ones who would have a small advance. So for example, I used to be £5,000, £6,000, £8,000 per book back 20 years ago. And for that money, they would reap huge rewards for the publishing house because the publishers would invest very little up front. So basically, those authors, all the money they brought in was profit to the publishers after the advance had been paid back. And the author had to pay back the advance. If you earn an advance as an author, that is an advance against future royalties. So before you get any royalties, you have to pay back all of the advance that you were originally offered. So the mid-listers were always brilliant for the publishing houses. After the mid-listers, you had the top-level guys. Now, these tended to be, with headline, people who wrote autobiographies. They were sports people, footballers, jockeys, cricketers, whatever it might be. And then it moved on to comedians. And more recently, it's obviously been the very top flight of the guys like Ian Rankin, like Michael Connolly, J.K. Rowling, all of the big names. They're all the top flight ones. And they make the publishers quite a lot of money. But surprisingly, not as much as you would think, because they may sell hundreds of thousands of books, but generally those books have to be discounted massively to be pushed out through supermarkets and so on, because the supermarkets want to make their own turn. Trouble is, in recent years, publishing houses have basically cut away all of the bottom end. They've disposed of any trainee type authors, so all of the very bottom end has completely gone. The mid-listers has been pinched so dramatically that there's very few of them left. And now publishers are trying to concentrate solely on those authors they know will be massive bestsellers. The reason is logical enough. It used to cost publishers a fortune to store books in warehouses. If they can concentrate on a smaller number of authors, they need smaller warehousing space. The other side is that they're trying to go away from storing any books anyhow. So they'll have a print run of books for the less brilliant selling authors, but they'll expect to sell all of them within 6 months. If they haven't sold them in a year, those books will go to a shredder and be destroyed. Not necessarily something that authors want to dwell upon, to be honest, but it's what happens. Now, if an author sells a book through a main publishing house, they may get 7.5% of net receipts for a paperback. To put that into perspective, if you're selling through Amazon, they will demand a 75 to 80% discount on any books going through Amazon. So that means that if you're selling a book worth £9, £8.99, the author will actually see 7.5% of net receipts. 20% of £8.99 is roughly £1.80, and so 7.5% of £1.80 is under 15 pennies. So it's a tiny amount of money. If it's an e-book, the author never knows how much they're going to earn, because usually with the publisher, the author will receive 25% of net receipts, but the publisher can vary the price down to 99 cents all the way up to whatever they think they can get for it. If it drops all the way down to 99 cents, 99p, then the author will see 25% of the net receipts to the publisher. With Amazon, the publisher will get 30% on something that cheap. So the publisher gets in 30p, the author's entitled to 25% of that 30p. It's peanuts. So it is very, very difficult. However, as an author, I've been wanting to move away from them and start focusing much more on the publishers that are going to do things to actually try to sell the books. That means a smaller publisher. For one thing, it means that I will be a larger name within a small publisher than, for example, if I was in HarperCollins against Ian Rankin or whoever it might be. There may not be any advances, but that just means I'm not being given an interest-free loan, which isn't an issue. But it does mean that I'll tend to get 50% of net receipts. So even if they drop the price of a book down to, say, 99 pennies, £1, I would still then earn as much with a 50% royalty on net receipts. I would earn as much as I would have got from, say, Headline or Simon & Schuster with a book priced at £8.99. So that is much, much more appealing. So I'm thinking a lot more about putting books straight up on the internet, and also going through the smaller publishing houses who are much more focused on ebooks and seeing how that goes. There is no way of telling how the market's going because it's still so fluid right now. The only thing you can be absolutely sure of is that editors will be earning a lot more than authors still. So what am I doing? I'm looking still at the idea of my police procedural based in Plymouth. I'm also working on an idea set in the 1960s based around two elderly ladies. I like that idea. It's different. I might work that up as a series of short stories and see how that goes. With the Plymouth book, that would be a fairly major story, so that would be full-length novel. I've also, however, got to now consider an offer because Canelo like Pilgrim's War so much, they want to have a follow-up to it. On the other hand, Sharp Books like Act of Vengeance so much that they want to follow up to that. So it's a case of I'm going to have a discussion with my agent before too long and trying to hammer out with her what is the best approach, what are the best books to concentrate on to try to get some money in for both of us, really. And I don't know what that's going to be right now. I do know I've got to write a lot more. So I'm going to try to produce a number of short stories this year, as well as writing 2 novels. One of those novels will have to be Blackjack 6, because Severn House are very happy with the way that the Bloody Mary series is going. So then I've got 2 other books I've got to write. What will they be? I don't know. It depends on what we think can sell. And having said that, that's pretty much about all I can talk about right now. I've got to finish off Blackjack 5. That's not quite finished. I've got it all printed out and I'm going through the edits now. Then in the next 2 weeks I'll have to devise a new ending, because the ending I had before Christmas wasn't really strong enough. So I'm going to change that, rewrite the ending, and then hopefully get that off to the editor before the end of the month. And then launch into discussions with the agents, as I say. So that's about it. I hope that was interesting. It's always rather difficult with these things because when you're in the middle of editing or writing, not an awful lot goes on. I've mentioned on the Vintners blog post, the Pilgrims blog post, that I've got a number of events coming up. I'm going to go and teach writing at Swanwick Writing School in the summer, later on in August. That'll be quite fun because that's going to be a whole week's worth of writing and helping other people. And I've got a few festivals coming up, but festivals are a difficulty because they very rarely pay anything. And it's a strange thing about festivals that the cleaning staff, the cafe staff, the security staff, all of the staff get paid. The visitors generally pay a lot of money, but the only poor devils who don't get paid anything at all are the flaming authors who are bringing in all of the audiences for the festivals. It's a ridiculous system, but it's how it works currently. It works very well for festival organisers, not so well for authors. However, they are rather useful in terms of helping authors to sell books. So I'm going to go to a couple of those this year, Stowmarket and also Winchcombe. But I think that'll probably be about it for me this year. The rest of the time is going to be taken up writing. So that's it. Yes. As I say, it's very difficult to think of things to say when you haven't really done very much. And what have I done in the last month? I've enjoyed Christmas enormously and done very little apart from that. Hey ho. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks an awful lot for your patronage because it does make life so much more easy. And If you've got any questions or suggestions about things I could talk about that you'd find more interesting, do please let me know, because it would save me so much brain effort trying to figure out what to talk about next time. Thanks a lot. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.